Hello, beautiful patrons. It's me, it's Queen Auset-Heru. And thank you so much for joining me for another fabulous episode of The Witch Trials. I love doing the witch trials. I really do. This is like my favorite video series, even though it's not very many of us, like it's just us watching it. I really love it because I love watching the movies and I just love it. I love doing these. So I hope that those of you who are watching are enjoying these. Today, we are going to put Practical Magic on trial. Practical Magic is a film that came out in 1998. And Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock played the leading roles. So this movie is all about magic from beginning to end. So I am going to first tell you what the movie is about. I'm going to give you a little summary. And then I'm going to tell you the vices and the virtues. And I'm going to tell you what rating this movie gets as far as, is it really witchcraft or is it Hollywood bullshit? All right, number one, Practical Magic is about women. That's one of the things I like about it. It's very divine feminine, very feminine centered. And you guys know I love that. Divine masculine is also equally as important. But I'm a lesbian, so I love women and women things. I just love it. Anyway, so basically the movie is about women. It's about this family, the Owens women. And way back in the 1400s or something like that, the first witch of their family was hanged. Or at least they tried to hang her. When she jumped down from the hanging thing, the rope snapped. And the townspeople got scared. They ran away. So she was banished to this island. Since they couldn't kill her, they banished her to this island that was right near the mainland. And she stayed there by herself and gave birth to her baby. And that was the beginning of the Owens family. Now, the lover, the baby's father, never came to her, never helped with the baby. And so she basically got angry and bitter. And you know how we do when somebody breaks our heart and we never want to love again, we never want to hurt again, we're angry, you know. That's how she got. But when a witch gets this way, it can be very detrimental because you manifest by what you think and by what you say. Now, anybody that uses the law of attraction, you don't have to be a witch to use the law of attraction. Anybody who uses it is the same exact principles. If you're saying negativity or pessimism or whatever the case is, you're speaking against what you're trying to manifest. So that's basically what was happening with her. She was angry, she was bitter, and her bitterness turned into a curse, basically a generational curse. Every woman in her family experienced heartache, usually the death of the man they loved. So the movie starts with the ancestor story, and then it takes you to modern times. And basically the curse is still active, and the young girls, Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman, their characters are called Jillian and Sally. Jillian is Nicole Kidman and Sally is Sandra Bullock. So their parents get together, and of course the father dies. The mother basically dies, cries herself, dies of a broken heart. And her sisters, it seems like, I think they're her sisters take in her children, her two daughters, Sally and Jillian. So the rest of the movie is basically talking about their lives. Sally, you know, ends up getting married and has kids. Jillian runs away from home to date guys and have fun and live her life, you know, and have friends, because she hated this small town. Because, of course, the small town people were very closed-minded and thought they were devil worshippers and all this kind of stuff. So it's the same kind of stuff witches go through in real life sometimes, with neighbors and people being afraid of them, or people, you know, saying nasty things about them or things along those lines. So the movie is basically about that. her husband does die, and Nicole Kidman's character ends up in a bad relationship. I mean, it's in essence really a love story, because at the end of it, they've killed a man, they've brought him back to life, you know, had to kill him again, you know. It's really, really cool. And at the end, Sally falls in love with this cop, because when she was little, she cast this spell for this imaginary man, and this cop turns out to be just that man. You know, she said this really strange rhyming spell, like he had to have one green eye and one blue eye, and his symbol is a star, and you know, she had this whole long thing. And then this man shows up, and he's a cop, and he has a sheriff's star, he has one green eye, one blue eye, like everything she said he is. And at the end of the movie, they fall in love and everything is all right again. So my thing is that I thought it was a very delightful movie just in itself. But that doesn't mean it stands up to our trial. Now let's see about that part. So that's the summary. You get the life of these Owens women. It's really cool. At the end, everything comes back together. So how many vices did I find? The first vice says, we can't bring people back from the dead. In the movie, they do a spell and bring back Jillian's boyfriend from the dead. Jillian's boyfriend was abusive. He punched her in the face. And then come to find out later, he had murdered a woman, and he's really disturbed. So at one point, basically they end up killing him by accident. They give him this herb. It's called belladonna, and belladonna really is an herb that you can use for this purpose. I think that it's put into pharmaceuticals at this point from my Google search, and they said it can be dangerous. I don't think it's something people really should work with. You gotta be really careful if you're going to work with something like that, and read up on it and know all about it before using it. But anyway, they accidentally killed this guy with the stuff. And then they have to bring him back because they don't want to go to jail for murder. And they did it on a sneak tip and didn't tell anybody about it. So their witchy aunts, the ones that taught them magic, are like, what is going on? You know, you got to clean up this mess. And they end up later on cleaning up the mess. So we cannot do that. We can't bring people back from the dead. If witches could bring people back from the dead, do you know how much we would charge to do that? I'm serious. People will, when a person is in grief, they will pay you any amount of money to do almost anything. So, I mean, you could charge like $20 million to bring somebody back from the dead. If that was really something that we can do. It's not something we can do. If we could, none of us would have lost loved ones, you know? 2, they move objects with magic. They stir spoons and just let the spoon keep stirring. They move all kinds of things with their magic. They blow on candles. They do all kinds of little stuff. And even a little bit of this is possible. I've told you before, but not to the extent that they're using it. This is definitely special effects. And 3, they can fly. In the movie, they all fly. We cannot fly. If I could fly, oh my God, do you know where I'd go? I go somewhere every day. But yeah, they were flying. They had brooms and they were flying. And I was just like, man, if witches could fly, I would be so happy. So I found 3 vices. I think that's the least amount of vices since I started doing this video series. 3. Now, what did I like about the movie? That's even more important. Let me tell you about that. Number 1, they had all kinds of magical stuff. I loved it. They have stuff that I actually have. They had magical books, like spell books. They had candles everywhere. They had herbs everywhere. And they actually grew their own herbs in their garden, which I thought was extremely cool. And a lot of modern witches do that. They had flowers they were using in spells as well, and flowers all over the grounds. It was beautiful. Their spells rhymed. All my spells rhyme. I love that. They did a blood ritual. The two sisters did a blood ritual on 2 different occasions, and I have done blood rituals before. I'll tell you the one that they did. They did a blood ritual where they made a pact with each other. So let's say you and your best friend want to make a pact. Now, this is not recommended because it's not very sanitary. You can get HIV or hepatitis or all kind of stuff messing around with somebody's blood. But if it was somebody, let's say, for example, it was somebody that you knew didn't have anything, like your child or your sister, like in this case, it's her sister. Still, they don't recommend it, but some people will chance it. And basically, the blood ritual was the one sister cut her hand, the other sister cut her hand. They held hands and made a promise to each other. This is a simple and basic blood ritual, and it is used. Everybody doesn't use it, but some people do. So they did a blood ritual. That was factual. The townsfolk were cruel to them. A lot of so-called Christians, and not just the Christians, a lot of different spiritual groups are very nasty if you say you're a witch. They even have like sermons against witches, and they don't even know nothing about us. You know, it's all that ancient smear campaign. And the townsfolk were very cruel to them. And I was like, these people are supposed to be Christians. They were throwing rocks at them and, you know, chanting nasty things like, you know, you're a witch, stuff like that, you know. And I'm like, oh my God, like, you're supposed to be Christ-like. You're supposed to be acting like Christ. Christ would never do something like that, you know. Quite the opposite, actually. When in the Bible, there was a story about a prostitute or a woman who was accused of being a prostitute, and they were all going to stone her to death, and Jesus made them stop. So I was like, this is not Christ-like. So the townspeople were very cruel to them, and this does happen. This happens online. This happens in real life. This happens a lot. Felt her husband die. Sally's husband died. The first one died. We get the impression she marries the second guy, but the first one, he was the kid's father, and he died. And he was very nice. His character was a nice guy. You don't see a lot of development with him, but you see him playing with his girls, and he seems to be a nice guy. And Sally felt him when he got hit by the car. She felt it. And witches, we do have a tendency to feel things like that. I mean, she didn't know what happened. She just felt something's wrong. And any mother will tell you that this kind of intuitive sense is very common. Sometimes even any father. But this kind of intuitive sense is very common with witches. When something is going wrong, we have a tendency to feel it. When both my grandparents died, I had a dream the night before they died that they died, you know, and the next day I woke up and they really did die. So I've never dreamt anything like that since, but they were like part of my bloodline and very close to me. So I'm thinking maybe that was why I had that dream. But it is very common for us to feel when somebody is harmed or somebody dies. They put a potion in his drink. You can make potions and put them in somebody's drink. It's illegal, I'm sure. It's probably assault, but in this case, they killed him. So it was assault and it was, I guess, murder one because it was premeditated. But there are potions you can make that will do different things to people, not just hurt them though. You can do, I do one with peppermint oil for when somebody's sick, and it kills whatever the bug is in their body. So there's all kinds of potions you can use for all kinds of things, and they don't have to necessarily hurt somebody. But in this case, they put too much of it in and it killed him. So that's why I said before, it could be assault if you mess somebody up. The goddess Hecate or Hecate, her name is said, most of these ancient names are said in more than one way. So it just depends on which one you heard. Hecate, Hecate. She is one of the more famous goddesses. She's from the Greek tradition. And she's famous with witches because she is said to be like the head witch. Like she is the witch, you know. So a lot of people that practice the European traditions will call upon her. And they called upon her in the movie. And they did a little rhyme, a little spell that had her name in it. I love the aunts. They call their aunts the aunts. And I love them. One of them, I know her name. She's Stockard Channing. She was the girl who played Rizzo in Grease. That's the only reason why I know her, because I loved Grease when I was a kid. And Rizzo plays one of the aunts, and she does a superb job as a witch and an aunt. She does a great job in this role. She's brilliant, and she's beautiful. She still looks great, you know. And I love her because she said that one of the most iconic lines from the movie. She said, "My darling girl, when will you learn that being normal isn't necessarily a virtue? It rather connotates a lack of courage." I love that line because it's true. And I love that line. So I love the aunts. Both of them were very loving and very supportive, took great care of the girls, taught them witchcraft, taught them not to hurt people, you know, taught them all the good stuff. And how to protect themselves too, because later on in the movie, they have to protect themselves. They have to do a banishing spell. So you see later on in the movie, they have to do that. And the aunts are just really cool. Reading palms. At one point, Jillian reads palms. I think on 2 different occasions she reads palms. But yeah, she can read your palms. And a lot of people can do that. A lot of witches can do that. I never learned it because I was into tarot. And tarot can give you a more, in my opinion, a more in-depth reading. So I never really wanted to read palms. So I never really wanted to read palms because I was so into tarot. But a lot of witches read palms. It's very common. And I hear you can get a lot of information. Maybe one day I'll learn that. That's something good for me to learn in the next millennia. So, next I'm going to tell you about signs. In the movie, they saw so many signs. The moon, if it had a ring around it, or if it was a certain color, was a sign. Broom falling was a sign. Seeing certain things in their dreams was a sign. And this is also true in regular witchcraft. We see signs all the time and we interpret the signs. And some of the signs they said in the movie, for example, she said when the moon turns blood red. Some people believe that's an omen of negativity. Some people believe it's a different omen of different things. But it's always seen as a sign. So we do see signs and we do use them in this way. Sally told the cop there is no devil in the craft. And that's true too. We don't have a devil. None of the people I know in any of the traditions have the devil. The devil was made up by Christians. That is what they see evil as. That is their representation of evil. The rest of us are not in league with the devil because we don't know him. That's their creation. None of us believe in the devil. Now, we do think that there's bad magic, there's bad spirits, there's bad people. We know that. But the devil is not our thing. That is made up by Christians. That's how they viewed evil, and they gave it that name. Now, the rest of us see evil in other ways and call it different things, but the devil itself, himself, or itself, whatever you want to call it, is a Christian thing. There is no devil in the craft. We don't commune with the devil because we don't even know him. Spirits, possession, and stalking. Spirits can possess people. There's thousands of documented cases if you want to Google it. And they do have a tendency to follow certain people more often than others. The spirit in this movie was a little bit more strong than any I've ever seen. But the situation, it wouldn't have happened exactly like in the movie. They kill him and he comes back, and you know, he's much stronger because he's able to present himself to anybody in the room. And generally you don't see the spirit. You see, like some of the witches might, but just like an average layman doesn't usually see the spirit. They just hear or think something's off. This spirit could present himself to anybody he wanted to, and he was stalking this family. So that can happen. Needing a full coven for a difficult spell. In the craft, if you have a very difficult spell going on, sometimes you do need more than one witch. It really depends on what it was that was done to you. So some of the times, like in this case, they have to banish this really strong spirit. So I wouldn't be surprised they would use more than one witch. In this, I think they used 12. That would be about right. It might not have to be 12. It could be 2. It could be 3. It could be 4. But usually for something that's really negative, really nasty, and hard to get rid of, you would use more than one witch. The banishing spell. They did a banishing spell. And I mean, banishing spells are like very popular. I've used banishing spells for 20 years. You know, when it's time to get rid of somebody that won't go away, you got to do what you got to do. So the banishing spell is definitely real. And it doesn't hurt a person. It just sends them away. It just gets rid of somebody you want to stop pestering you. And many times I have had to do this spell. As an Aquarius, you guys know I've had my share of stalkers. And I have had to do this spell but it's not just one banishing spell. It's different ways to do it. I'll give you one. One way to banish a person is to go to the store and buy a balloon. You would cast a circle, you know, you would do all your witchy stuff. You know, we have to prepare the space. So you cast a circle, you cleanse the room, you do all these kinds of things. And you write a spell that you're going to do, generally one that rhymes if you're a rhymer, but one that basically tells the spirits or God or whatever you're calling upon, goddess, what you want to happen. So in this particular case, if you want the person to go away, you would say something like, you know, so that it harms none, including me, in perfect time, preferably swiftly, some kind of way rhyme, please take this person away and never bring them back, something like that. And you would take the balloon and you would take the person's name and you would write the person's name on a piece of paper. And you probably would put like some herbs or some oil, some banishing. We have banishing oil, we have banishing herbs. I would put herbs inside of it and I would oil the outside of it and wrap it up and I would attach it to the balloon. So I'd staple it. It can't be too heavy because the balloon has the lift. So I would do that. I would, you know, like I said, when you put the herbs in, don't put in too many. So I would do that and then I would do the spell. I would do the incantation and release the balloon. I've done that one several times and it worked every time. I like that one a lot. That's one of my favorites, actually. But there's lots of them, and that's a basic banishing. And they did one in here, but they did it differently. They got in a circle because they were banishing a spirit versus banishing an alive person. It's different when you want somebody to go away who's alive versus somebody who's not alive. So the spells are different. So I had 3 vices and 16 virtues. I must tell you, based on that, you guys probably can already tell that I love this movie. I was surprised because I remembered this movie as being about witchcraft, and it is. This movie gets an A+ from me. This is the first movie, I think, to get an A, period. But this movie gets an A+ because there were only 3 things in it that we really can't do, and one of which was moving objects with your mind, we can kind of do. So it's only really 2 that are impossible. And I really love the movie. But what I realized about this movie is this is a love story. It has a lot of witch stuff in it, a lot of witch stuff. But this is really a love story. It's about falling in love, having a broken heart, learning to love again. That's really what this movie is about. And at one point, you know, I was watching it and I just started to cry because one of the scenes, Sandra Bullock was talking about, you know, wanting a love that time will take notice and stand still for. And I just thought it was such a beautiful line. It really made me cry. I love this movie. It touched my heart deeply. And I didn't realize that when I picked this movie to do today. I didn't realize how much of a love story it really is. I did it because it's a witch movie, and that's what I do. I do witch movies. But this movie is a love story. And I love the witchcraft in it, but I also love the love story. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I love this movie. I hope you guys had a chance to see it. If you didn't have a chance, watch it. If you're not into love stories, you probably won't like it. But if you're into witches and witchcraft, it will be cool to see the stuff that we really use. So if you're ever really curious about how we do magic, this is a really good representation of stuff that we actually do. They don't do all of like the preliminary boring stuff like cleaning the room, putting up the circle, casting the corners. They don't do all the boring stuff. They just show you the action parts, you know, the doing the spell or whatever the case is. They get right to the point. So you miss a lot of the preliminary work that it actually takes to do something like this. But it's a beautiful movie, and it really touched my heart. Because you guys know lately, not even really lately, but for a while now, I've been considering if I want to have somebody else in my heart. And this movie really touched me because I've been playing with that concept the last couple of days. And to me, this movie was like a confirmation from God. It's like, yeah, you want to do this. You do. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. And if you get a chance to, I hope you watch this movie because this is an A+ movie. This is the only movie I gave an A+. This scored higher than any of the other movies that I've done on Ask an Aquarius. If I'm not mistaken, I think the first movie may have been The Craft, and The Craft was really good, but even The Craft didn't get as high of a grade from me as this one did. I was looking to see if I wrote in the beginning of it what grade The Craft got. So The Craft had 10 vices, so this has only 3. So yeah, this one is amazing. I love this movie. All right, guys, I want to thank you for being my patrons. I want to thank you for listening to my ramblings. And I want to thank you for being here today. You could have been doing anything and you spent 27 minutes with me. And that is not lost on me. All right, guys, I'll see you next week with another review. Take care.